capture this meeting for others. Well, before we jump into the full agenda, I just wanted to take a minute to give a moment to recognize everything that's going on in Minnesota, across the US, and in our communities. We need to honor George Floyd and so many people who have lost their lives. And we need to do that by really working to change the system of racism that is discriminating against, imprisoning, and killing so many of our Black and Brown neighbors, friends, and family members. There are a lot of community efforts going on right now that I hope everybody can participate and join. And it's a long journey that we all need to work towards so that we can make the system change happen. And it's especially important for people like me, people that are white and that are benefiting from our current system. So I just want to take a minute while we're all together to have a moment of silence. All right, thank you all. So in moving into just recognizing some of the folks on in the meeting who serve on our executive board, I'm going to try to go looking through our faces in our list. But we've got Irene Person Gamble, who serves as our vice president. We've got Peggy Auth, who serves as an auditor on our executive board. Jay Stange, President Emeritus, legend. We've got Meg Milkey, serves as our secretary. Let's see. Lots of names. I think Arena serves as our treasurer. She is on, I think, the phone. And then it's great to see both Cameron Perez-Verdia, Austin Quinn Davidson, and of course Judy Jessen with our assembly. I think I've got all those folks. So with that, I would love to move us into some of our brief reports, and I'm gonna kick it over to Austin and Cameron first. And again, these reports are quick and about 5 minutes each, including questions. So if folks have questions, please type in the chat. Take it away, Austin, Cameron, Judy, whomever.
Cameron, what is Cameron? Oh, Cameron is beating me to it. He just did this. Oh, trick. Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
I did make a little list of things to go through. So we've been talking a lot at the assembly, and Cameron can fill in any gaps I'm leaving, but talking a lot about the emergency. We just extended the mayor's emergency order last night. It was set to expire on June 5th, and so this was the last assembly meeting we would have that we could consider extending it. The extension of the emergency doesn't necessarily mean that any of the orders that came from the emergency would exist. So it doesn't mean there's a hunker down. It doesn't mean there are any particular rules. It's just a general state that allows the mayor to move more quickly, allows him to make procurement decisions easier, quicker, without long waiting periods. There are some collective bargaining reasons that it's easier to stay in the state of emergency than folks can work from home through their agreements rather than having to come back into the office. So there are a couple of sort of logistical reasons beyond the fact, of course, that it's just easier to move quickly should we have an uptick in COVID cases and need to make other changes. So we, I think 9-2, if I recall correctly, everyone but Eagle River members extended the emergency last night through July 31st. Related to that, we had a couple members, Meg Zalatel and Forrest Dunbar, bring forward a mask wearing resolution. You know, the way that the emergency works is that we, the assembly, decide whether there is an emergency and whether to give those powers to the mayor. And if there is, it's the mayor's job to implement that emergency, to set executive orders, to make rules like the masks, to decide what happens with businesses, all of the smaller, more detailed rules that we're seeing in the news come from the executive branch. And so but Meg and Forrest have felt that the mayor needed to be taking a tougher stand on mask wearing and needed to ask all employers or mandate that all employers require that their employees wear masks and provide them for them. So there is a pretty healthy debate about whether that made sense. What do we think about masks generally? Even beyond that, do we think that employers should mandate the wearing of masks? And as masks have become more political, of course, there's more involved there too. So I think we had a pretty healthy debate, and it ended up feeling 5-6. So a lot of the things that it would have just been a recommendation to the mayor to mandate mask wearing by employers, or that employers mandate to their employees that they wear them. So, most of our votes, it's changing a bit since Jamie got elected, but it used to be 11-0 on a lot of our votes. And so that's pretty tight for us. We don't usually have things that are 5-6. So that's kind of interesting. Did you want to add anything to those things, Cameron? I was going to move on to CARES Act.
Nope, I think you covered those great.
We're about to get our allocation of the CARES Act money from the federal government. And so we've been holding a series of hearings and opportunities to engage with the public to try to figure out the best use for that money. Felix, who's the chair of the assembly, and I am the vice chair, mostly Felix, organized a bunch of hearings with different community partners. So some examples were small businesses, nonprofit leaders, Lori Wolf from the Foraker Group, university representatives, childcare providers, shelters, a bunch of different organizations to hear from them about what they're going through and what have been impacts to their entities, and how, as the assembly, we can best prioritize and ultimately appropriate the CARES Act dollars. So we've, for the last 2 weeks, have been doing that, a lot of hearings. And the process next is we're having a rules committee meeting this Friday, where all of us are getting together to take all of that we've heard and start building up our priority list. So we welcome feedback from you all about ways that you've seen how the CARES Act has touched the community and things that we can do to make it better. And I think a priority of a lot of ours is to try to realize that COVID just exposed some of the existing holes in our safety nets in our community, and what we can do to try to shift the long-term story beyond just getting things back to normal. So we've had a lot of conversations about that, I think, in those hearings, and then with partners and friends and neighbors outside of that process. Alongside the CARES Act process, we've been also discussing the alcohol tax. And as you know, the alcohol tax passed. It's going to be implemented on February 1st of next year. And so we, as the Assembly, have been going through a series of processes or meetings to decide how to spend that money once we get it. And right now, we had initial meetings together as the Assembly in a work session. We've sort of farmed it out. Hey, Natasha Pineda, is that her? We farmed it out to different department or different committees, to Health Policy Committee, to the Homelessness Committee, and to the Public Safety Committee, since those are all the purposes of the alcohol tax. And then those committees will make recommendations, and from there we'll go and eventually make a decision as the Assembly, somewhat fold that into 2021's budget process, which kind of goes July to November. So we welcome feedback on that. Personally, I'm really interested in trying to do, and Natasha has been a great leader on this, trying to do prevention work, potentially early childhood education, programs that actually get to the heart of, we could clean up camps all day, but we're never going to solve the problem if we don't start thinking about why there are camps and why people are homeless and what kids are experiencing and how they get to that point in their lives. So anyway, a lot of conversations about that. I see someone's unmuted and maybe they wanted to ask me a question or a comment. No? Okay. We've also been, I guess the last thing I'll say is we've been talking, I think, amongst ourselves and probably having many different conversations with the community about George Floyd and what happened to him, and just sort of this pandemic across the country of brutality and racism, and how it is part of our system, and how do we, as Lindsay said, particularly as white people, take ownership for that system and try to fix it. And I know that we've been engaging with constituents on questions like, should we have police body cameras? You know, right now there are cameras on the car, but there aren't body cameras. There's pros and cons of each. There's different costs of different systems. So I think we're at the beginning of maybe having a more comprehensive conversation with our police department about that. Cameron, did you want to add anything? You've made some nice comments about that issue particularly.
Yeah, I just appreciate that the conversation. I realize that we only have five minutes, so I don't want to take too much of the rest of the time. Just a couple of other pieces really quick. We did pass a stimulus for transportation, for reducing the inspection permit and annual permit fees, which affects taxi cabs and a lot of our transportation industry. And just wanted to also mention that we passed the 88th and Blackberry traffic calming project that is going to start soon. So I'm excited about that because that's near where I live. So anyway, but no, everything else that Austin said was great, and we're here for questions. And if we don't have time right now to answer questions, please feel free to reach out to either of us through email, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Great, thank you both. It looks like Peggy and Bob have one question, and then we'll move on to the next folks.
Yeah, just a question about cleanup. Is there any extra funding for homeless camp cleanups? The same ones that I talked about last October are still in Northwood Park. There's 3 right along the Fish Creek Trail. These are within 10 to 20 feet of established trails, and it is a public health issue, and I don't think that it should be that complicated. These are very, very extremely trashy, huge, awful sites that I've been complaining about.
Yeah. Yeah, and you guys, I know, back up right against the trail system, so it's practically in your backyard, and that's really frustrating. I think the thing is that it's not simple, and that's sort of the challenge and problem with homelessness, is that we can clean up camps, and we do, but if people don't have a permanent place to live, they will just, we sort of refer to it as whack-a-mole, which sucks for everyone. But you can clean up that camp, the person's just going to move 20 feet down the trail, and then there's another camp to clean up. And so but we know that we can't just let camps stay, especially as they impact people's homes and lives. And so we've been trying to do cleanup, but simultaneously make a long-term plan. We just approved a program, Home for Good program, which sort of piggybacks on a pilot program that United Way was doing that gets people in permanent housing. And this will fund up to $5 million. The cool thing is we use public, well, they're like foundational impact investors. So like Rasmussen or something like that. They're usually sort of charitable organizations who will pony up the money to get that process started. So yeah, it's complex, and I don't know that it's perfect. It's also challenging on the assembly because our role is really to appropriate money. Our role isn't to manage operations of homelessness with respect to the Muni's involvement. And so I think it's frustrating for me sometimes because I don't even know sometimes everything the Muni is doing, and there are so many different departments that touch it. So anyway, I understand the frustration, and I'm sorry Cameron, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that, and you've mentioned, I've seen a lot of your communication, but I just want to make sure that those camps are on the list. There is plans to do a significant amount of camp cleanup this year. We've budgeted for that, and that is starting to really get ramped up now. So I would just want to make sure that those camps you identified are on the list. Because not only do we want to make sure that we're thinking about cleaning them up, but we're all wanting to make sure that we're making contact with the people that are there, and so that we can know who they are and be working towards finding services for them, finding housing for them, and just making sure that we're contacting them. So I just would want to make sure that the camps you identified are on our list, and that we're aware of them.
Can I add something? I don't know if you're aware, but that's actually on the easement, which is private property. So it's
Okay.
really a trespassing issue. I mean,
Okay.
it's, you know, they are on private property, which means the police can abate it tonight.
Right. Right.
So
they're-
usually if they're on private property, then actually it's the landowner's responsibility, unfortunately, to deal with it. So that's actually even more complicated, depending on who owns the property. So make sure it's reported. Bob, Peggy, you guys can email us too, and we can, but they will always say, even if we go to, you know, Chris Schutte, who's the Parks Department, Josh Duran, his boss, they will say, did they report it? So that's the best thing, is get online, report it. You can follow up with us by email, and then we can reach out and say, where is it on the list? What's the scheduled timeline for cleaning it up? And we can keep in touch with you.
Great, thank you. Great, thank you all. And thanks, Austin and Cameron. I don't believe we have Star Marset on the call, do we? Star is now serving as our liaison with the Anchorage School Board. So since she's not on, I'll follow up with Andy Hallman, who said last time to make sure that we have representation. And I'll turn it over to John Johansson with the Anchorage Airport, and I can share my screen to show the handout that we also have posted on our website. It looks quite similar to a lot of the updates. So John, I don't think you'll take a full 5 minutes.
I will be very quick. There's not a lot that's changed. I'll just talk to the things that have changed a little bit.
Great.
As you know, there's lots going on with COVID-19 and the actions that the state is taking, which are impacting travelers coming into the airport. I haven't actually listened to the press conference, the governor's press conference, but early this morning it wasn't real clear what was going to happen. So maybe some of you have listened to that press conference and understand what the new mandate is. But we are trying to accommodate DHSS at the airport to do whatever it is they're proposing to do. And we've got some temporary setups done there. We'll probably refine them tomorrow and Friday to accommodate whatever it is has been decided is going to happen at the airport with regard to screening passengers and et cetera. So I don't really have any specifics on that, but if you want to look at or go listen to the press conference the governor recently had, that should provide you with a lot of information. We are about to send out our airport community outreach plan, edited version. We only got input from Turnigan Community Council on that plan. We've incorporated some of their comments, but that will be coming out in the next several days. The only other thing on here that's new is we're still looking for staff. We're recruiting equipment maintenance specialists, heavy equipment mechanics, an office assistant, and some IT personnel. So if you're interested, there's information on item 5 there on this update for you to pass on to anybody you know who's looking for work. And that's all I have.
Great, thanks, John. Any questions for John? I don't
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks. I don't see anything in the chat. All right, moving on to neighborhood and community announcements. This is our time to open it up for the group, and if anyone has any local activities, projects, wants to introduce yourself, now's a great time to do that. You can go ahead and use the raise your hand feature. You have to remember to take your hand down if you want to, or we can unmute and wave at me and I'll try to call on you. Anyone have announcements to share? Nothing yet. We had so many last month. Okay. Well, I think that we have a Spenard announcement to make, and I want to see, Jay, if you want to be part of kicking off your farewell to Spenard.
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay. I sent out a few waves of notices in the last 10 days to folks to let everybody know, my community partners and my friends and neighborhood associations, trying to let everybody know that we made a really difficult decision in my family recently to leave Alaska, and I'm going to be here until July 10th. And I've resigned from my position at NeighborWorks Alaska. And we are heading to Hartford, Connecticut. There it is. Where they need a lot of bicycle lanes, and they need some creeks daylit, and they need some people to love some kids in poor neighborhoods, and so I feel like my mother-in-law is there, who I think is wonderful. She calls herself my mother-in-claw, and I think the world of her, and we're gonna go be near her with my children. My wife got a job with a company there, big company in Hartford called Travelers, and so I'm going to be taking off on July 10th, and I'm going to miss everybody very much. Something's happening in my front street.
I think Ira is trying to tell you something, Jay.
Yeah, I see that. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for being such a great partner and putting up with my bad communication skills and my obstinate attitude. Thank you so much, and I'm look forward to catching up with everybody in the next few weeks before we go. Thanks, Lindsay.
Yeah, well, thanks, Jay. You can go ahead and mute yourself, but you don't have to, because we're not in person, but we wanted to bring you something in person to commemorate your contribution to our community in Spenard. And it was a lot of hustling behind the scenes to try to make something happen. But Jay has really left a huge impression on making Spenard a more connected community, really with more vision. And you can kind of see him blurrily starting to open up a gift to keep Jay's vision of Spenard with us always. And if you haven't seen, we will be sharing these all over Spenard. These are our Jay-inspired It's Always Sunny in Spenard stickers with our fancy palm tree. We've got pins, and Jay has a big It's Always Sunny in Spenard poster signed by quite a few community members. Jay knows everybody in the community, so it was really hard to spread the word, but really easy to get lots of folks out to thank Jay and spread some love. What do you think, Jay? He's muted, I think. Are you saying anything? Yep.
Yeah, I love it, you guys. Thank you. Look, there's a palm tree. It's always sunny in Spenard, and some wonderful words which I haven't started reading yet. And thank you for the gifts. It looks like I've got a Spenard Raven mask to bring and to use. That's pretty awesome. Hewlin Designs. Oh, wow. Look. It's Always Sunny in Spenard stickers.
Mm-hmm. Those are Lee Post designed. So Kay Spenard, we have a new logo for our community council.
I have a button too. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, and I know lots of folks are on the call tonight to share and celebrate you, Jay. Anyone want to share any words for Jay?
Hey, Jay, this is Natasha. I just wanted to say this is sadder than the day then you told me that I didn't actually move into Spenard. And we'll miss you so much. And you made our lives so much better. And you're going to have big shoes to fill. But we're going to carry on the torch and keep up your good work. So thank you for making our lives brighter and better.
You know, we took a break from Fish Creek Festival last year because certain people who are really heavy hitters in our neighborhood were really busy. But you know, I think Fish Creek, Trick or Treat Fish Creek, you know, I'm looking forward to a live cameo from you guys this year.
Promise. Hey, Alicia, that means we're going to have to do it.
Yeah.
Maybe. A socially distant trick or treat.
Yeah. I have, by the way, if anybody needs a Fish Creek Festival stage, I have one in my backyard under a blue tarp, and you know, just come on over and grab it anytime, okay?
Oh gosh, I have a feeling that might end up in my backyard.
That's 100% in your backyard, Lindsay.
Jed's laughing in the other room.
Yeah. It's not funny when it's actually under the tarp in your yard, but I understand. Thanks, you guys.
Thank you. Well,
maybe I'll go, and I just wanted to say to Jay, this is Alicia Townspain, and hello to everyone that I don't know on this call, but it's wonderful to see all of these neighborly faces. And I think that, you know, Jay has always set such a good example for us and for me to be more neighborly, but he's actually also made me lazy because I'm like, oh, you know, Jay can just tell me what Austin is up to. So now I will work harder in your absence, but also in your honor to really make sure that these relationships stay alive and that we all kind of own that that neighbor building that you have been so awesome in doing. And just because I live across the alley from you does not mean that I'm going to take that stage. But, you know, if you had to park it here for a little while, we could deal.
Well, Alicia, your garden is so beautiful. And I'm so jealous of your amazing garden. I promise I won't do anything to sully it.
Thanks.
You guys are complaining about this stage. I got a palm tree to deal with.
Isn't that palm tree? We're all in it.
I'll trade a sticker for an albatross on the.
You don't have to carry that alone. We're all carrying the palm tree with you.
Great, thanks, Jay. We wanted to keep you here in Spenard. It's Always Sunny in Spenard. And really appreciate the community building you've done through not only the community council, but throughout Spenard these last many, many years.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. It's hard to go. And I think I was really worried that people were going to feel like I let you down, and I'm getting a lot of great community support. So thanks so much.
Thanks, Jen. Yeah. Well, that palm tree is a great transition over to talking cook-inlet housing with Tyler.
Well, and I guess I would say also that hopefully what I'm about to present is somewhat reflective of many conversations that I've had with Jay and others over the years to kind of get to where we are at this point. But thanks, Lindsay. And am I able to share this? I can just share when I'm ready to share. And then
Yes.
questions will be in the chat mostly as we go. Okay.
Yeah, folks can feel free to put them in chat, or do you want people to unmute?
We can do either, but so here's what I'm going to try to go for about 10 minutes and leave 10 minutes. I'll try to go fast. There's sort of a lot of ground to cover, but I'll try to do that quickly so that we can dive into the things that people really would like to know more about. So let's see here. Okay. Everybody see that?
Yes.
Yeah. You see it, Lindsay?
Yes.
Okay, so we're here to talk about a development that's in concept design called, that we're just sort of generically calling Spenard East for the moment. What I'm going to do is just go over, make sure everybody knows where it is, kind of what our goals were when we were planning for this development, talk a little bit about these processes. So in addition to sort of advancing building designs and all that stuff to the municipality, we go through two different processes in front of boards and commissions. One is the platting board, because we're changing some lot lines. And the other is in front of the Urban Design Commission, because a portion of the site goes through a major site plan review. And there's some particular other items that go along with those two issues, but I think I want to say that those are two other opportunities where there are public hearings that are related to this proposal. And then what we do, and I neglected to say that Bree is on our design team. She's on the call too. And we'll be sure that we document the comments and questions that come up and bring them to those bodies when we go there. So the outline is the project area that we're talking about. And sorry for those of you on the phone that can't see this stuff, but I'll try to describe it a little bit as well. We are in the area kind of across from kitty corner from our main office at 36th and Spenard, and across from our mixed use building that we completed in 2017. So the area the boundary is Spenard Road, 36th, Chugach Way, and Dorbrandt on the east side. So here's some list of goals of what we set out to try to accomplish, and sort of challenged our design team to help us accomplish these goals. One, if you drove by the site a couple of years ago, you saw a lot of digging in the ground. There was a significant amount of environmental remediation. We were in front of the Community Council for several times requesting support for grants, for brownfield grants and things like that. We also demolished a number of structures and got rid of a couple of uses that were some blighted properties, but also there are some uses that are kind of grandfathered uses that don't quite fit in the city's desire to create a transit supportive development corridor along Spenard Road. Obviously, what we do primarily is housing, and that is consistent with the municipality's designation of this area as a reinvestment area. What you're going to see is a mix of different housing. We usually don't just build one type. So we've got some senior housing, some family housing, and units that range from studios to 3-bedroom units. And finally, we've incorporated both a green infrastructure approach, which is really just using the site to deal with our drainage, as well as we think we've created some good open space amenities in the site. So first, on the platting side of things, if you look at all of the little gray lines inside of that orange polygon or whatever it is, there are 20 existing lots, and we're taking those 20 lots and replatting it into 5 lots. So basically, if you ignore the gray lines then and look at just the orange dotted lines, what we're left with at the end of the day are 2 commercially zoned lots and 3 residentially zoned lots. There is a boundary that separates kind of the western part of the parcel is commercially zoned, and the eastern part of the parcel is residential zoning, medium density residential. In addition to getting rid of those lot lines, we're proposing to vacate the right of way. So because we've kind of been able to acquire lots all the way to Dorbrandt, which was our goal, we're then able to vacate the public street and serve the property by private roads, driveways, as well as private sewer system and water system. As a kind of function of platting, we also will be dedicating land on all sides of this. So we dedicate to the right of way on Chugach Way, to Spenard Road, to West 36th, and to Dorbrandt. And we likely will be making improvements to Chugach Way and Dorbrandt, as well as extending water, the public water from West 36th down to Wilshire and to the edge of our property boundary, which would then make it easier to extend that public water in the future to the lots that are not currently served by municipal water. So I can answer questions on that later. So here's the site plan. So if you assume all that stuff gets approved, the reason why we're asking for vacation of the right of way is to really implement this site plan. Working kind of left to right on the screen, on the Spenard Road side and Chugach Way side, again on that commercial property, we're building 2 3-story buildings. One of them 19 units, one of them 21 units. One is a senior building, one non-senior, and they're designed to relate to those streets. So the muni codes really want us to sort of make it feel like that those buildings have a relationship to Spenard and to Chugach Way, but then they're served by this sort of driveway back behind them with the parking facilities back there. The one building that remains is, because why wouldn't Yummy Bakery remain, is the building that was formerly Yummy Bakery. We're going to make some improvements to that building this summer, and it's a commercial kitchen, and it'll have a small kind of primarily to-go orientation. The guy who leases it now is James, who runs Sweet Caribou. So he's looking to expand his offerings and have a small sort of commercial building within this larger site. That's really the only commercial use that we're proposing here. Working farther to the east, you get onto what are this R2M parcel, and you have a series of townhouses along Spenard Road that really kind of have a door, or I'm sorry, on 36, have a door facing 36th, and around back behind them have a garage and driveways. And then you have 3 8-unit buildings in the middle that are 2-bedroom units, sort of garden style units that are sort of taking address off of this private road. And the private road that we're proposing to build connects from Chugach Way all the way through our site, eventually over to Dorbrandt. Sort of pros and cons of that, right? There might be cut through traffic. There probably will be cut through traffic, but it also creates better circulation and access for our residents and the commercial property here. And then I guess the last remaining one, there's one little lot that's created off of Wilshire, and we would just build a duplex, because that really is more consistent with the buildings that are down kind of the main stretch of Wilshire. So kind of a one-off one, but really looking at the context that made the most sense. I think the other notable things for us are we've tried to create this central kind of park or open space area that would really be a central feature to our development, and we'll design it in such a way that it has amenities that are appealing to seniors, kids, as well as if you were grabbing food at Yummy Bakery and you just wanted to sit and kind of be looking at, towards the south at an open space area. The other kind of main feature that we have is this sort of larger green belt, if you will, on the southern end of our private road that abuts the setback. The setback is a setback for the mapped Fish Creek. And creating this larger green space here allows us to really have green infrastructure there. So we would orient drainage towards that site, have things like rain gardens and things so that the water could naturally go into the ground and eventually into the creek bed. And then we have this feature where we believe we can build sort of a little bit of a meandering pedestrian pathway that is both an amenity for our residents and then also provides a good pedestrian connection if people just want to kind of get through the site. This is a common footpath that exists already, so we're just sort of acknowledging that. and providing for that. The only other thing to point out is we've got a lot of good pedestrian connections kind of through here. So even though we vacate Wilshire north-south, we keep a good sidewalk connection for people to get through our site north-south. Last thing I would just mention is, like I said, a portion of our site plan goes through a site plan review at the Urban Design Commission. This is the portion that goes through it. And what we're asking for at the UDC, in addition to say, hey, does our site plan meet the intent of the code? But we're asking for some variances to the landscaping standards. And without going into big details, the reason is right now, because we have different zoning districts, we'd be required to buffer landscape between those zoning districts. And we don't want to buffer. We're actually designing a site that's cohesive. We want to have eyes on this park area here. We don't want to create a sort of an obstruction to it. So we believe we can provide some alternative landscaping that's still nice, but doesn't meet the definition of buffering, which is a very prescriptive requirement. The last one would be on 36th, same thing. They typically require a buffer landscaping on 36th. We think actually creating a connection, you can see these little sidewalks, creating doors and connections from those units to the street is actually a more positive thing than trying to just shield that that development from the road. So what I'll do is I'm going to just flip through a couple of quick renderings. These are very early concepts, but just gives you a sense of some of the shapes and the forms of the buildings. This would be coming down Spenard Road. This is kind of the corner of Spenard and Chugach, kind of where the palm tree sits right now. And then from that green belt area, if you will, looking back towards the west with both this lower, 2-story units with the 3-story buildings in the background. So that's it in a nutshell. I know that was a ton of information. Hopefully it's not totally new to some of you on kind of what we do and why we do it and how we approach things. But I would, spend some time answering questions if there are any.
Thanks, Tyler. Can you just go over the timeline again?
Yeah, I did not do that. So the timeline is we would go through this summer, we would go through the plating board. We would go through the Urban Design Commission probably in October-ish, sometime in the fall. And we would, if all works out well with all of those processes as well as our funding, we would build a first phase of this starting as next summer. So we contemplate 2 phases of development. Of course, that's always contingent on all the right things kind of happening at the same time. So in a perfect world, we start next summer and we're totally done in 2023.
Great, thanks. And it does look like there's a couple comments in the chat box. One from Michelle Wilbur. It seems like a generally wonderful development, but it always floors me how much space is taken up by parking in this town. Wish the pavement didn't have to so far outstrip the building footprints this close to transit and walkable, bikeable amenities.
Yeah, I mean, me too, right? I mean, I think that unfortunately, we will seek some parking reductions to accommodate the senior building and the multifamily building. Those are like reductions of like 15% of what the code is required. But, generally speaking, we have a commercial component, as you all know right now, if you go to a lunch spot in Midtown, a lot of people drive to it, right? And so, so we have the 16 spaces associated with that building too. But yeah, I mean, Michelle, maybe someday we can celebrate removing those parking spaces and planting gardens. And until that happens, this is what it takes to get a development, approved and financed.
Thanks, Tyler. And Jeremy Weatherall also asked, is the plan accessible on the website?
It is not. we're sharing it here. I'm happy to sit down and sort of talk to people or talk to one-on-one. We typically don't put our developments out on the website because we compete for money with other developers. So happy to share them, but we try not to, as I'm scanning the phone numbers that I don't recognize, right? That's so we're not really hiding anything. It's just not been our thing to just put them out until they're fully funded. But call me and I can walk through, what questions you might have or why we're doing things. And then you see it again at the Urban Design Commission. So it's like the worst kept secret, really.
I was going to say, we are recording this and post this onto our website.
It's just, yeah, I think most of you know, we compete for funding statewide. These projects that sometimes have higher costs because it has environmental remediation, these are sometimes harder projects to get funded than someone had a greenfield site and did. And so we're at a tough spot there, but anyhow, I know it's out there for everybody to see. So someone asked about Spenard Road. Can I address that?
Yep.
So I don't remember exactly how much right of way we have to grant on the Spenard Road side, but it gets up to 40 feet from the center line of Spenard Road to our required setback. So then the desire is to have, if the city can, 80 feet within which to design Spenard Road. And if any of you followed the earlier conversations about the first phase of Spenard, or first two phases of Spenard, the city did not have those 80 feet, right? Which was why it was hard to fit all of the things into it. So what this does is, at least for this section, provides the right of way that is needed to the city without them having to come buy it. The same thing holds true on Chugach Way, is that we're granting 15 feet on Chugach Way. So in some ways it's less right of way the city has to acquire. Now, what we would have on Spenard Road would just be a 5-foot sidewalk like exists today, but the room would be there in the future should there be a design that says, hey, we really want an 8-foot sidewalk and a bike lane or whatever. The right of way would be there at that time.
Mm-hmm. Great. There are a lot of good comments and questions. Hunter Dill has a question. Are there any plans for other lots on Wilshire Avenue? Is this the foreseeable extent to acquire lots in this area?
I think it is. I mean, we in some ways really wanted to get to that Dorbrant Street to be able to then propose vacating Wilshire through there and really have that cohesive site development. So we have two big phases to accomplish. We have, as some of you know, we're gonna build a couple of duplexes on Wilson and Chugach this summer. We have some lots over off of McCain Loop. So right now, that's sort of the extent over the next couple of years of what we're doing, along with the Church of Love and along with 3400 Spenard. Those are other commercial investments that we're making, but right now we don't have additional plans to acquire more properties.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And Austin Quinn Davidson also has a good question. She thinks JJ Brooks visited the Spenard Community Council last month. He did. He is a property owner on Chugach Way, closer to Arctic, with the Cathy O Estates and another adjoining trailer park, just so folks know. And Austin asks, how does this relate to any development he has planned next door to this property? And Tyler, do you at all coordinate or meet with JJ?
Well, JJ and I talk on occasion, sort of compare notes and timeframes. We were, I think, larger landowners were the reason why the city declared this area a reinvestment focus area. But I think we're not exactly right next door. I kind of think of it, we're more bookending than we are, adjacent. So JJ's that property's over off of Arctic and Chugach and 36th, and we're on sort of the other end. I would hope that it would, if we were both to go forward, create some pressure with the city to make some improvements to Chugach Way, for example. Look at is there a way to extend that green belt through there? So are there ways to connect east-west from Arctic to Spenard using our sites as kind of a catalyst? That would be sort of the relationship. But, you know, again, we're a nonprofit affordable housing developer. JJ is a private developer. I personally think if we can have both of those housing types in the neighborhood, it's a good thing. But, you know, I don't know what his exact timeline is.
Mhm. Thanks for that. We have had a small group of community council members meet with JJ just a couple weeks, maybe last week. And so if anybody is interested in having small conversations in this work group with JJ Brooks, it's again that Kathy O Estate trailer park area. That's Chugach Way, Arctic, and 36th. And we are talking to him about, hey, let's make sure that there is a setback for Fish Creek. Hey, let's think about Chugach Way getting improvements, including pedestrian and bicycle facilities. And we're having some early conversations with him. He doesn't have kind of a site map about what he's working towards, but we were looking at what Tyler and folks are doing at Cook Inlet Housing as the opportunity to say, this is possible, this is something that's happening, and it is a way to make sure that we're including the daylighting of Fish Creek and walkable, bikeable, connected community as we improve our different neighborhoods.
Yeah, I think, Lindsay, we really, I mean, we had a couple, I probably went through 20 different site plans, and I didn't say, but I've been with the Cook Inlet 10 years. I've been working on this project for 9, seriously. And I think, but in the end, you know, we wanted to create that green space on the north side of Fish Creek, both as an amenity, both for a drainage and open space feature. If a kid wants to ride a scooter, it's a good place to kind of go. But it also, I think, helps people envision what a greenbelt could look like. And it certainly doesn't preclude it, right? If anything, I think it encourages it in the future. And that was really part of our, you know, design approach. And that was, honestly, that wasn't in the plans when we started thinking about this 5+ years ago. I'd also just mention, you know, I see Jay's comment about parking districts, and back to Michelle's comment. I think that if you think about this area in particular of Spenard as compared to, say, north of Northern Lights, there are no side streets within this area that can support any sort of spillover traffic, right? And that's so like the other reason why we have the parking that we have is we know that we have to provide 100% of our parking on our site, because you can't park on Spenard, you can't park on Chugach Way, on 36th, you know, there's no other place to spill over. So that's an added challenge here that is, I think, quite different in that northern part, and even in the western part of Spenard.
Mm-hmm. I think Peggy and Bob have a question for you. Do you guys have one?
Yeah, I think we both do. So Tyler, the question I had as somebody who's a pedestrian is the connectivity that's a problem in that area, as far as, you know, I understand the concern about not having cut through traffic. Boy, I understand that. But when you were talking about having a pedestrian walkway, is it just for the residents there, or would it be kind of open that if I'm walking down Chugach Way, I could feel like I'm not trespassing to go through there? Because it's a lot harder to walk out, you know, the extra 1 or 2 blocks to go to Spenard, and then, you know, so I'm just wondering what your take is on that, about other people coming through there. I'm not talking about bands of people, just, you know, like somebody taking a walk like Bob and me.
I don't want you and Bob on our property, Peggy.
Thanks, Tyler. We love you too.
Look, I think that if most of you saw the design, it's designed in such a, we can't prevent people from walking, you know, any more than you can prevent people from walking in a commercial area that aren't, you know, paying customers in that commercial area. So while these aren't, you know, these aren't quote unquote public, they're being actually designed to accommodate people both in the development and those that wish to use that space for cars, right? And there's some things going on in our design where we're trying to create certain things that cars don't race through that development, right? So we've got some back out parking that actually is intentional. We're trying to slow traffic down on that road because we know people will use it. Part of the reason why we're building that trail on the south side is that it actually will be a nice trail, and it'll be an easy way for people to go through there without walking right by people's front doors or tenants feeling like people are going and, you know, walking right by them. So it's intentionally designed to accommodate people that need to get through. Keep in mind, we have a commercial use on that property as well. We want people to cross these areas to get to the restaurant and, you know, and use and frequent that. And the other thing about that restaurant is we're designing a commercial shared kitchens where there be multiple people using that kitchen. So we sort of acknowledge and are designing it in such a way to accommodate you and Bob in a nice way, but then other people, right? While also not inviting behaviors that we don't want to see happen.
Also, I just had a question about the zoning for the multifamily. I mean, they're both B3, and I presume it's just because those lots are already zoned B3. I mean, there isn't any hidden commercial future use for those multifamily buildings.
Yeah, no, good question. I mean, actually, there are actually people that would like us to put more commercial in the ground floor of that and of those buildings. They're not being designed in such a way that you'd be able to retrofit them. I mean, it's totally, we could put all commercial there from a zoning standpoint. But honestly, if it's this weird thing that if you have a commercial use, you actually have to have a lot more parking as well in our current kind of paradigm. And we're a houser. I mean, we want to own housing units. We want to provide good homes. We also want some commercial amenities, but that's not the most important thing to us. So those would not, they would take from what's designed here, would take major changes to retrofit those into commercial uses.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
There are a couple more questions. We have maybe just about 5 more minutes to go on this topic, but a couple questions considering a permeable surface for instead of pavement for the parking lot, and questions about any considerations for solar panels use.
So the second one first, yeah, we are designing solar panels on some of the buildings, those that have good orientation to the south. So similar to what we did across the street, those are on the roof, but what you'll see here is kind of flush mounted on the sides of those buildings. Solar photovoltaic is what will be, so just the pure solar electric generating panels. The permeable surfaces is a really tricky one, and I actually don't believe that it's a methodology that is accepted by the city. Certainly when we have a portion of that considered a private road, you're not allowed to do anything other than what's our standards. So what I can say that our approach is we're really trying, when I say we're trying to use green infrastructure, rather than directing the runoff that comes into a catchment, into a pipe, and either dumping it into the Fish Creek drainage or into the storm sewer system on Chugach Way, we can imagine having like gaps in the curb where that water then flows into retention areas, and then the water then is absorbed into the ground there. So that's what we mean by green infrastructure. That's kind of as green as we can get in Anchorage right now, and still get an approved project through.
Great.
Jay's got his real hand up.
Gotta ask Jay. Oh, but you're muted.
Yeah, I don't want to open any big cans of worms, and that's not my intention. I just wanted to point out that Tyler, I appreciate all of the work that you've done over the last 5 years in working with the design assumptions that you can't change. Of course, Title 21 being one of the big ones. And, we've had a lot of productive conversations, I think, about parking in Spenard and creating a parking district that could be shared. It is a giant disincentive to new young businesses to have to create these giant parking requirements on their property. And Radhika Krishna's on on the phone here, and you know, with her set up shop projects that she has underway, I know that, you know, a cost for a new business to build parking is prohibitive a lot of times. And so, you know, if we can do something in the future to, you know, exclude ourselves in this particular Spenard area from parking requirements of Title 21, I think that would be fantastic. And so parking is definitely one of the things you're working with. And the other thing, you know, you mentioned at the top of the meeting that, you know, you can't fight gravity. And, you know, you're dealing with a gravity situation in the you know, the basement bathrooms over at the Church of Love renovation. And you know, one thing I just want to point out here in this site design is that you've done a great job working around the sewer main, which runs through the Fish Creek setback. And I understand, you know, my understanding is that there's incredibly poor soils in that area for building. And so, you know, looking forward into the future, you know, I appreciate, you know, the great work you've done in negotiating some of the things you can't change. And I hope that the opportunity for the neighborhood in the future is that we can manage stormwater above the ground instead of putting in expensive pipe. And we hope to be able to daylight Fish Creek and restore the creek from the edge of your property all the way east to Cuddy Pond one day. And I think that what you've done here is to, you know, move ahead in an efficacious way with your project, you know, as a developer, and also leave, you know, a room for a potential Fish Creek daylighting in the future. And so I thank you for all of your negotiations and all the time that you've spent making that possible. And, you know, for the community at large, you know, we think that Fish Creek, you know, offers an amenity, and also, you know, besides being an amenity, is also, I think, a more efficient way to handle stormwater than to build expensive pipe that only has a 20 or 30-year lifetime. So thanks for your work on all that and your consideration of the community's needs. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jay. And I think this could be a bit of a demonstration project on how to use green infrastructure, in particular in this area. Luke Matson, who's our civil engineer, is on the call. Bree Kiefer, who's our landscape architect, is on the call, and they're working together, right, to incorporate those two things. And I think they also see Karen's comment about the parking lot looking really close to the setback. And so Karen, we've already been informed by watershed management and planning that, you know, we can do what we can do outside of the setback, but we can't nip it, we can't drain into it, we can't disturb it. For that, we can get into the setback, I think, for some getting rid of invasives and doing some selective sort of maintenance, but no, we're not allowed to put a parking facility into that setback, and we won't, or we won't get a permit.
And I just want to go to, I'd say the last question. It's a good one from Emily, and it's looking forward. Will there be an opportunity to show support for this for a public hearing in the future? What do you need from us and the community council?
Well, it's, you know, I mean, we would always, if you wanted to sort of pass a resolution in support of our action, and that can, because this will probably be the only formal time we're at the Spenard Community Council before we go to the Platting Board and the Urban Design Commission. So I didn't come with the intent to ask you that, but if you choose to do that, that would be helpful. There are opportunities in front of both the Platting Board and the Urban Design Commission. When those happen, property owners and the Community Council will get noticed again, and you can either submit comments online, or you can take, you know, you could take formal action. We can come back and do this, but this way, you know, if you wanted to do it now, it's certainly helpful. All of the issues and concerns, both positive and kind of things that are concerns, will be captured here by us and presented to those bodies, so that, you know, if you feel like you've raised an issue that you want to be carried forward, that issue, we're carrying that issue forward.
Great. And Jerry is raising his hand as well. Do you want to come off of mute and weigh in?
He's on mute.
I'm here. Is AWW willing to help you with the sewer line? It's run right through the center in JJ?
It's both through the creek, as well as there's a sewer easement. I I think, Luke, if you can nod, the sewer easement runs through from 36 down, kind of straight down to the creek, right? Too, isn't that the so it runs kind of in back of the Yummy Bakery, and that's likely where we'll tap into the sewer system for our system. So the sewer kind of is fine. The extension that we have to make is that water extension from 36 down to Wilshire because of that, because otherwise we create a lot that doesn't have access to water. But the benefit is it's more available for others. I will say the real bummer is we have to go into 36 and remove the pipes that are tapped into the water line all through 36 from all of those previous connections were made. So no, they don't help with that. They make sure that we remove that stuff.
The sewer main.
The sewer main's fine the way that it is. Yep, but doesn't need changed, and it's good. It's good to go in that area.
Have you looked at the TV reports?
Oh, the condition of the sewer line.
Yeah, there's TV reports on it in the last 2 years. So AWW says it's in fine. I'll just leave you with that.
Yeah, no, and obviously, so we've been working with AWW. They know that we are connecting to their systems in this area. Yeah, they haven't said, oh, you've got to replace a big chunk of the main sewer, and they really can't do that. That on that point is the utility's responsibility.
Right. No, they would be on their buck, but it'd be a good opportunity.
Yeah.
To come from where JJ is down, but I'll leave you with
I got you. Yeah.
Obviously, you've discussed it, but at this time,
yeah,
it'd be a good opportunity because you will be moving earth.
All right, so I want to wrap this up and move us forward, but just addressing the question of if the community council would like to take any action. It looks like a few folks are in favor of passing a resolution supporting this project. Jay also said you would consider creating a MOU with Cook Inlet Housing and then a resolution to come later. Does someone want to put forward a formal motion for the body to consider? We haven't tried out voting on Zoom yet. We'll figure it out.
Lindsay, are we voting on an MOU or resolution?
There's not a motion yet. I'm asking for someone to put something
forward. Well, I would make a motion.
Right. What are you making the motion?
Well, I guess I don't mean to sound stupid.
No, I'm asking.
What's the difference between an MOU and resolution? I guess I'm a little confused here.
Jay, do you want to?
Yeah, here's my thinking. I think it would be wonderful if the Spenard Community Council could put a resolution forward supporting this project, which could be used in Tyler's discussions with the Platting Board and also with the Urban Design Commission in the fall. And I think that one of the concerns that I have, which isn't necessarily a concern with Cook Inlet Housing Authority, but one of my concerns that I'd like to see addressed in an MOU with stakeholders in the area is to say, hey, we have mutual goals here. We'd like to see affordable housing. We'd like to see a green belt preserved. We would like to see space reserved for daylighting Fish Creek. We'd like to have a number of different initiatives considered in the Chugach Small Area Plan that's coming up at the end of the summer. And there's a number of planning processes moving ahead. And I want to be able to, my thought is to support Cook Inlet Housing Authority in those processes, but to also make sure that the community's goals of preserving an opportunity to daylight the creek and favoring green infrastructure and non-motorized trail development is something that we mutually agree upon with all of the major stakeholders in the area. So I don't think there's any disagreements about the intent. I just think it might be a really good time for our council to spell out the specific ways that we can support Cook Inlet Housing Authority, and also speak to the broader area plan that we would like to support in the future. And I think an MOU, rather than maybe a very, that leads to, that is connected to a resolution, might be a more detailed and effective way to do that, rather than just sort of passing a broad support for the project right now. It might not be, it might be more specifically helpful for us, for our community, and for Tyler's efforts to spell out a couple things more specifically. And I don't propose that we do that tonight.
Well, an MOU or a resolution, I think we could have some, okay, it looks like folks are in the chat agreeing with the concept for an MOU. It would have to be taken offline. We don't have another community council meeting until September, because we're off for July and August. So this is something that we could move to the executive board to move forward while the full body does not meet. But I'm not really clear about our regular processes as a community council, if that's something that we do as an executive board.
So can I comment, Lindsay?
Yes, Tyler.
So, first of all, I didn't come asking for a resolution for the project. That's not a requirement when we go to the planning board or the UDC. And so I'm happy capturing the comments, and if we can get a copy of the chat as well, if that's savable, and we can provide that. What I am not comfortable with, quite honestly, is this somehow that could be the perception that we're entering into an MOU as a condition of getting a resolution. And I just honestly, I don't like, it doesn't feel right to me. So I am open separately to understand what the council would like a written agreement on, whatever it might be. And so I would say, if someone wants to take a stab and do that, there, by all means. Whether we would sign, I don't know what it would sort of require us to do any more than we think we're responding to sort of the premises that I think Jay outlined. So if you're looking for sort of a partnership, I think there's a way that we can do that doesn't sound like I think an MOU can be quite simply that we'll collectively work towards these goals. But again, I would politely ask that we separate an MOU from feeling like that's got to be done to comment formally on the project itself, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Lindsay, I would like to second the motion that Peggy made to just simply support the development as Tyler has presented it tonight, going to before the plating board and the urban design commission.
And if I could comment on that, since the motion's on the table, and I appreciate that, Tom. My only reluctance is I would hate for the record to show that the council does not support it because there are people that feel like they'd rather see an MOU. And then I think that at that point, the record then sort of hurts us without the context of what we're talking about. And I honestly don't want to risk that going to a board and commission. It just really doesn't look good. I'm pretty sure that I hope that if someone made a resolution to not support this project, that that wouldn't pass. It's not the sentiment that I get, but that's what it would look like on the record. And that honestly makes me nervous.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the resolution that I'm seconding is Peggy's, which is just to support you in your development and nothing about an MOU at all.
No, I know, Tom, but what if people don't support it because they want an MOU, but all it looks like is that they didn't support the project? That's my dilemma.
Well, supporting your project is one thing, but the MOU, I think that's going to be probably a year-long conversation as to, we're asking developers in an MOU to become our partners. And I don't think we're to the point, we're not ready to do that. We don't know what that means. And developers, I think, would all run the hills if we sign something like that. So I don't think our partner development. I think we're just in a position to support your development, because what you're proposing, I bought my first lot in the 80s, thinking that I was going to develop something on that property that I really liked. And I worked on it for what, 30 years before I sold all the lots that I had to you. So you know, you have taken this so much further than anybody else has ever been able to take it, that I think all we should do is say, congratulations. Thank you very much. You've done a great service for our community.
Well, the conversation has gotten a little bit muddled, but the motion that is on the table is just whether the Spenard Community Council would like to support the project as presented tonight.
Well,
Peggy?
now I'm not sure I'm even supporting my own motion. I might withdraw it. I think the thing is, Tyler, what we're trying to do is support you and your endeavors. And I certainly think the general feeling is we're not trying to cloud the issue for you. So when are you going before plating and UBD?
So we would go to the, and keep in mind what those boards do is they look at the things that they're looking at. So the platting board looks at just the plat, not the whole development. They could care less what happens on the whole development. And the UDC looks at the portion of the site for the site plan. So we would go to the platting board. I think, Dan, I can see you nod if it's right. I think June or July is kind of our goal. No, July or August at this point. July, August. At this point, we have to submit, and then there's a few weeks. So it might be before you've reconvened. The UDC would be in the fall. That would be certainly after the Spenard Community Council begins to that meets again, and there'd be notice again about that, that site plan formally. We were just trying to sort of present both of them up front, just to sort of show what we all had planned, not just show you the plat.
So it seems to me what you're saying is that I get the idea that you don't really need our permission or even support until maybe you get into the planning zoning stage when you go before P&Z or whatever. Is that?
Yeah. We don't go to P&Z. We go to the platting board, and then we go to the Urban Design Commission. We don't need a formal resolution. What I do need is general support for our development. I don't, it doesn't help us for people to say they didn't listen to a word we said over these years, and this is not what we want in our neighborhood. That's not the developer that Cook Inlet Housing wants to be. So, but we don't, the formality isn't necessary tonight. What I just don't, what I'd ask that you not do is, if you think that the resolution's going to fail, I'd rather not, because it looks like you're not liking as a body our project.
I want to move us forward. We're getting mired down in our process, and
just one more
to cover. Jerry, I want to go back to Peggy and see if she wants to move this motion forward.
Go ahead, Peggy.
Yeah, I guess I'm kind of asking. I'm a little confused here. I think that my feeling is it seems like there's general support and enthusiasm about this. I don't think it's going to be a negative vote, but I certainly don't want to endanger anything on your side, Tyler. That's why I'm sorry for holding people up, but I think the intention is, and what Tom is saying is that I think that generally there's a lot of support for this. So I'm doing it in good faith. Let's put it this way.
To move it forward.
Yeah.
Okay. I want to put it to a vote. I don't know how we do that other than please type in if you can chat. If you're on the phone, please unmute and vote. And you can only vote if you are a resident in Spenard and have been to a meeting in the past year. Jay, voting by raising your hand, or are you asking a question?
I'd like to make a suggestion.
Sure.
Peggy, and Tom, I hear you, and what Cook Inlet Housing Authority is proposing in this area is a massive improvement in our neighborhood. And one of the things that we haven't talked about tonight is that Cook Inlet Housing Authority has already secured almost $2 million to remediate polluted soils in one of the lots that they're considering tonight. They've done containment and remediation for the property across the street that used to be PJ's, where the diesel plume from the old Olson gas station extended. And this project is a great project. And so I think that this is a positive development for Spenard, and I can't see that we wouldn't support this development. What I think is important to consider tonight is that Cook Inlet Housing Authority is not the only stakeholder in the planning process that's coming forward. And we have a JJ Brooks, who's a private developer. Friends of Fish Creek is currently negotiating with the Cooper family to purchase the Cooper lot, which has implications for daylighting Fish Creek and for extending a green belt and a trail. And I just want to make sure that the things that we can support as a community, all of the stakeholders are spelled out clearly before we move forward into this summer planning process. And so my intent is not in any way to block this project or to delay it or to ask Tyler to concede to some kind of like crazy request that we're going to make, you know, and withhold a resolution for him. That's not my intent. But I do want to just recognize that there is a broader process here, and it's important for our community council to be on the record supporting a consistent design idea for this whole area. And I don't want to, you know, in any way impede what Tyler has going on, but I want to supplement it. And I think that the time tonight is too short for us to make a good conversation available to all of our membership. And I would ask Peggy if you would please withhold your motion until the council has a better opportunity to further discuss the ways that we can support this project moving ahead. I don't think there's any deadline tonight that Tyler needs. I don't want to be on the record in any way not supporting the project, and I would like to see us flesh out the ways that we can support the project in either a letter or an MOU of some kind moving ahead. So I'd ask you to please withhold your resolution for tonight until we can have a further discussion, and I'll stop taking up airtime with that.
Well, I certainly don't want to bungle things for Tyler, so I withdraw my motion and ask to table this until another meeting.
Okay. I feel like we got somewhere, maybe. But we had a really good conversation, and I think Tyler got good information about different ideas, considerations that we have, and that generally we support this project.
I think I just relived the microcosm of every conversation I've ever had with Jay over the past however many years. So thank you, Jay, for that parting gift.
Yep. I apologize to everybody that we are at 8:30. We're going to go over time. If you have to go and dig in your garden, go do it. But you want to stick around for 10 more minutes because Radhika is going to share about the Anchorage Community Land Trust's summer program, Set Up Shop Spenard. Take it away, Radhika.
Thank you so much. And I will do my best to not make you even later. So may I share my screen?
Yes.
Great. So just for a little bit of background for everyone, I'm Radhika Krishna. I'm the Director of Programs at the Anchorage Community Land Trust, and we're a nonprofit organization. Our office is right at the corner of Mountain View Drive and Price Street, and we do a lot of different kinds of community and economic development work, but we have a Set Up Shop program which we use to support neighborhood businesses in the neighborhoods we work in, which are Mountain View, Fairview, and Spenard. So we're already working with a lot of Spenard businesses. And as part of our training program this year, we really wanted to do a training class for free for businesses in your neighborhood, because there are a lot of existing businesses right here in Spenard that have been really impacted by COVID-19 this year. And so we thought the thing that we could do was to provide a free 4-week class in July that helps people look at their books, get their business online, create a better web presence, create an online store, and just also have a safe space to workshop questions and other problems that they're facing with other business owners and specialists and experts that we're bringing in. So this is something that we want to, we're going to run through July. The application is open right now on our website. So I would just say, please spread the word to businesses that you know who could use some extra free help from folks who want to support your neighborhood businesses right up and down Spenard Road. That's what I wanted to share about our specific program that we're running, but I also want to take a few minutes while I'm talking to you guys and just tell you that right now, the state of Alaska through Credit Union One has just released probably what is going to be the largest business support program for COVID-19 relief. It's called the Alaska Cares Grant. It's open right now. This is hundreds of millions of dollars going directly to businesses, and we want to make sure that all of our neighborhood businesses apply for that money. So please spread the word, especially to neighborhood businesses and business owners that you know are struggling. We are helping people apply this week. Our staff is in our office safely social distancing and helping people get their paperwork in, because it's really, really important to make sure that we get applications in this week and early next week. This money is first come, first serve. You can see all of the information about it on the Credit Union One website, but that's another thing that I just wanted to put out there, which is that if you know people who are eligible and should be applying, send them to us. We want to help them apply. We're happy to answer questions, and this is really important, because this is how we get you know, that grant funding that's going to sustain our businesses out to our commercial corridors in the next couple of months. So yeah, happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Radhika. Anyone have questions? Yeah, Jay.
Radhika, your work with the Community Land Trust and Set Up Shop is amazing. I love all of the sponsorships and supports that you've provided. I think it's amazing. Can you talk a little bit about how the CARES Act funding that you're aware of can support businesses that you know, are in danger of closing right now? In Spenard, you know, we have one of the, as you pointed out at one of our community council meetings a couple of years ago, Spenard has one of the highest percentages of small businesses, you know, in our community council area, and it's small businesses is crucial to us. And so, what kinds of things can we do to support businesses that are in danger of going out? And also, do you know how many small businesses have closed in Spenard since the COVID-19 restrictions have come online? Because I can think of 5 or 6 right offhand, and you know, it's a big threat to our neighborhood, you know, and we're looking for any opportunity for support. So thank you so much for being here tonight.
Yeah, as you say, it's really, really important, and now is the time. So I would say that right now the funding that's available is actually for businesses that didn't get any federal funding. So it's actually, what is really nice is it's going to be for the mom and pops that maybe didn't have an accountant, weren't prepared to apply for those really complicated federal funds like the Paycheck Protection Program. So I would say that what we can all do is, the next time you go to a neighborhood business, just take a look, see if they're doing okay. You know, if you feel like there's a chance, go talk to the owner and ask them if they know about the state grant program that's open now. That's what you should ask. If they say no, then tell them to look at Credit Union One. You can pull up that site on your phone and just say, hey, this application is open now. or send them to us, send them to the Small Business Development Center. You know, just, I think that's what we have to do, is just be neighbors and just make sure that everyone we know in all of our networks and the places that we go to even know that this is an opportunity. And so the money right now that's available, you can get grant funding for rent for the last 2 months and the next 2 months, for payroll costs, for utilities, for any business equipment and inventory. So it's really broad, actually. It's pretty much all of the expenses that you have in running your business. So this is, you know, you just need to bring documentation. You need to find, it's a lot of paperwork to put together, but I think it's worth it because this is the funding that will sustain people.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. Any other questions? All right, well, I added the link to this chat and we'll try to spread the word for the applications for Setup Shop. Thanks, Radhika. Great, so now we have just some brief reports for our committee reports, and wanted to just turn it over really quickly to Arena, our treasurer, for just a brief update from the audit committee. Are you there, Arena? You might be on a walk. All right, we'll see if we can come back to her. She's got technical issues. I don't think that we really have a Spenard Cannabis Committee update from Jed, and Jed may or may not be logged in, but we wanted to make sure to keep this on the agenda so that this committee does continue to meet. I know that committee members do want to get together and talk about some different projects going on in Spenard. Is there any update from the Cannabis Committee? We do have an update from, I'm getting texts instead of people talking. Jed says nothing to report. We do have a report about the capital improvement program. Jay, I listed you down there, but I'm gonna share my screen so that we can, this is a topic that we talked about last month about ranking these different project ideas in Spenard. And this year, projects are ranked a little bit differently, where we would talk about state projects in our boundary area. We talked about projects for the city, project management and engineering, and then parks and trails projects for parks and recreation. And we had a survey that went out, and about 29 responses came in, and then we sorted through the different projects and have this ranking here. We thought that we would have this submitted already since the deadline was the end of May, but they extended it to June 15th. And so we will move forward on putting this together. We don't have a ton of time to have more discussion on this, but I did post this document to our website if people are interested and have any questions. But these are projects that we rank on our list that then eventually can move forward for funding and coming to fruition and being actually developed. I shared this with our executive board, and we had some discussion about the projects, but it was really an interesting socially distant process to do the online survey. And we will move forward and submit these to the municipality so that we can get our priority projects ahead of the list of a long process to actually get them funded and to move forward. Jay, did you want to talk at all about these projects for the overall ranking?
Lindsay, I just wanted to say that I love this ranking. I think it really speaks to the things that our neighbors and council members have brought to us in the last year. One of the opportunities in priority number 1, where it says pedestrian crossings, traffic calming, Minnesota Boulevard from International to Northern Lights Boulevard, I want to make sure that it's clear that there is a $1 million proposal for a study called the Minnesota Multi-Way Boulevard Study that DOT has put forward because of our community council's work on this on this issue, and that is to look at creating a slower roadway between International and Northern Lights Boulevard on Minnesota Boulevard, one that is maybe has additional green space and maybe less lanes and maybe a lower traffic speed design. And I think that's a really positive, move ahead for us. And AMATS has it in its 5-year plan right now, and we're waiting to see how it gets prioritized into the next TIP. And then the other thing I just wanted to point out is that the DOT Spenard Road Rehabilitation Project, Benson to Minnesota, that one has an RFP coming out, and we're hopeful that one of the good design firms here in town is going to take that on, and it's a really positive development, I think, for us here. So anyway, I think there's the way that you put the rankings together. It was really not an easy thing to do. Thank you, Lindsay, for all of your hard work to compile everybody's comments into these rankings. I think, to me, they seem to represent the community's needs pretty well right now.
Thanks, Jay. And thanks everyone who filled out the survey, scored those things, and made this ranking happen. So I appreciate it. And it does sound like Arena's back on and can give the final report out on the audit committee.
Yeah, just because I'm young doesn't mean I don't have technical issues. Apparently Zoom does not discriminate at all. So I feel for everyone who's had technical issues, but in the interest of time, I'll be very quick. So last month we had talked about how the audit committee has a continuing audit going. We're kind of locked out of our account at First National Bank, and we're still trying to get all the receipts from the Spenard Farmers Market in regards to the loan that we had given them about a year ago. So we're working on it, probably work through the summer and have an actual update the next time we meet.
Great, thank you. And I just wanted to respond to Judy's question about the capital improvement program. She asked if, since the deadline was extended, can people still fill out the survey? And unfortunately, no, because we planned ahead and I had to do all of the scoring. I'm not going to do them again at this point. So thanks for folks who already got those in. All right, I think we did it. I think we made it to the end of our June meeting. We do have a summer break. We will not meet in July and August, and we'll be back in September. Hopefully we'll be in person, maybe we'll be socially distant. We likely will continue to have maybe some small work sessions throughout the summer. So we'll post those likely on Facebook, or we'll share out to our network. So if there are any topics or issues that you're interested in or do come up in the summer, please continue to reach out to the Community Council. SpenardCC@gmail.com is the quickest and easiest way to get to us. So really appreciate everybody's time and energy. And I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I want to suggest we all say a communal goodbye to Jay before we end this meeting. So all together now, bye, Jay.
Bye, Jay.
Farewell.
I miss
Thank
you.
Bye, Jay. Bye, Elena.
For better or for worse, I move to adjourn.
There we go.
See you guys in a few months, or maybe before.
Thanks, Austin.
Thank you.
You might still be in Zoom, so you could just keep joining us.
That's true. I think that's a good idea. Okay, good night, everyone. Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Thanks, Lindsay.
Bye.
Everybody. Bye, Jay.
Still sunny in Spenard.